What's going on, everybody? My name is Tomas. I've been using the late 2013 Mac Pro for a better part of 2 years, and I thought it would be a good idea to finally share my thoughts on it, considering how old the hardware is, the new developments in the operating system environment, and the enhancements to Creative Cloud applications from Adobe. With all that, this is my review of the Mac Pro 3 years later. Let's go ahead and start this video off by addressing the elephant in the room. The lack of hardware updates to this line of Apple computers is really kind of embarrassing. Current and prospective Mac Pro users are running on really outdated CPU architecture without even a glimpse of when we can expect them to be updated. Tie that in with major movements in the GPU industry, the Mac Pro will look really weak when you compare it to a Windows-based PC. Especially when you look at one thing and one thing only, price. And all that considering that you could probably build your own system for half the price of what it would cost you to buy a Mac Pro. Now that I've gone ahead and identified the fact that the Mac Pro is old and is in dire need of a hardware refresh, let's talk about how it works for me. To sum it up, it's been a fantastic user experience with minimal downtime. Bottom line, it just works. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you may have noticed a while back that I was having a GPU issue with the Mac Pro. This came as no surprise to me, as Apple has identified that some of their early production models have had display issues and are working to fix the problem for people for free. In the end, it ended up being a faulty monitor, not a GPU issue. That has been the only problem I've experienced with the Mac Pro since I've owned it. I hate to use a term so cliche as it just works, but there are no better words to explain my user experience with the Mac Pro. Since its inception, the Mac Pro was perceived as an underpowered, overpriced trash can. But I'm here to say that that could not be further from the truth. This sounds counter to what you would consider as an accurate statement when you're talking about personal computing, but the spec sheet doesn't mean anything when it comes to user experience, in my opinion. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say specs don't mean shit when you're considering a workstation that doesn't work or doesn't work for you. The Mac Pro has been the most reliable piece of technology I've used in my production workflow, and I only bring this up because when I'm editing on a souped up Windows machine at work, it still experiences issues, outages, and project failures at a much higher rate than I would get when I'm working on my personal projects. The Mac Pro just sits quietly on my desk, no matter the processing load or task, and does what I need it to do without fail. Bottom line, the protection you get with your investment into a Mac Pro, or any Apple product for that matter, is unmatched by any manufacturer in my opinion. You tack on Apple Care with that, then you're in a good spot, making sure you're covered in a case that you have a technical issue or a hardware failure. Let's be honest, the Mac Pro is overpriced. And if you're one of those individuals that bought one or are thinking of buying one, then you want to make sure that your money that you spent is well protected. Apple is one of the best when it comes to repairing your faulty or broken equipment. In a time where Apple has abandoned modular design for pretty much all their hardware offerings, the Mac Pro stands alone, being the only one that is fairly easy for users to upgrade on their own. From the RAM to the CPU, you're able to purchase aftermarket and change it without too much hassle. Granted, a GPU upgrade on your end as the end user is going to cost you big bucks, and you're pretty much limited to what Apple has made because the GPUs in the Mac Pro are proprietarily designed. But you should know that you can do it. If you wanted to push the limits, you could invest in an external GPU like that of the Bison box. I did a review of that recently, and it's linked in the description of this video. That gives you the capability to pretty much use any GPU that you want on a Mac Pro. And the Bison box unlocks all types of cool things that you can accelerate your workflow with. So far, I've been able to upgrade the RAM and the PCIe SSD since I've purchased this Mac Pro. And as soon as the CPU prices drop, I plan on upgrading that as well. The Mac Pro's modular construction is something I hope Apple doesn't take away from us again. Because if you're gonna drop this kind of money on a personal computing system or a workstation, then it should be modular by design. That should just be a requirement of such expensive equipment. Finally, before I close this video out, the advancements in Apple opening up the API access to their metal acceleration, for example, has made expanding the power of old hardware to meet the needs of today's technology technology. It's opened new doors to managing and processing projects on my old hardware. In essence, it's breathed new life into what many would say, including myself, a very outdated hardware system. And with companies like Adobe releasing updates to their Creative Cloud subscribers that take advantage of these new developments that Apple has opened for them, it should make a ton of creative enthusiasts and professionals very happy. It just compounds the return on your investment into old hardware, especially when it's this expensive. Again, this ties back to the hardware specs and how they really don't mean anything because the user experience is enhanced by the software support and development. That's all that really matters in my opinion. So is the Mac Pro still worth it after nearly 3 years without an update? To me, yes. Yes, it is. Would I still buy one today? Yes, I would. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't like to see an update. I'd also purchase a Mac Pro on Apple's refurbished store because paying full price for this machine just seems insane to me. I'll leave you a link to the Apple refurbished store in the description as well, so feel free to check that out. Well, that about does it for me in this one. If you like this video, please feel free to give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, hit the other one. Thanks for taking the time to watch. I am Tomas, and I'll catch you in the next one.